name is Maskwanan Kwebik, Dijinakas, Bajutu Tam, Skatwazagegan Dunji. And my English name is Sandra Mandamin, and I am from Shoal Lake 39, which is not too far from here. I work at Wasegijig Nanandawigamig Health Access Center as a health promoter, and I'm also a first aid instructor. I always say we're the Jills of all trades. We do anything that's related to health promotion. Our main areas would be along the lines of FASD, diabetes, healthy eating, active living, smoking cessation. Those are some of the things that we do. And we also really aim to work on prevention. So we always say that prevention is key. Well, we do programming that actually is aimed to reduce the risk of diabetes or certain risk factors that each one of us have, and more so for First Nations people. Just being in that population alone, we do have an increased risk of getting diabetes. So we do a lot of 101s, like what is diabetes, what to look for, some of the warning signs, how we could screen for diabetes, and how we could reduce the risks such as healthy eating. What can we put in our bodies that would help us stay as healthy as possible? We're always promoting that return to traditional eating, trying to eat what our ancestors ate, because we thrived back then on that diet. Trying to be aware, because we walk in two worlds here, right? We also walk in the traditional and also our modern world here, and that's kind of gave us some setbacks because we're more sedentary, right? We live a different lifestyle now. So we're always trying to encourage walking more. We're always trying to encourage being aware what's in our foods, especially things that we drink. So we do a program called Rethink Your Drink, and we have a couple of the popular drinks, and we show what kind of sugar content lies in them. And it's always a mind opener. I think that's one of my favorite ones to do because people are really floored as to how much sugar actually is in the really common drinks that we have nowadays, such as pop. Even juice. People are really surprised with juice, apple juice, orange juice. Although natural sugars, there's still sugar for sure. Lots of promotion of physical activity. We do like squat challenges, we do workout derbies, diabetes walks. So we do testing of sugar before you go on a walk, and we usually do about 3 kilometers, and then we would retest their blood glucose again after those 3 kilometers, so they could see the positive effects of walking for just something as little as 3 kilometers. Even just the 3 kilometers. In one, I've seen it go down at least, I want to say like 4 points. So this person would have 14, and they came back at like about a 10. So, and that was just 3 kilometers. So you can imagine if somebody were to do that every day and keep it consistent, because with the benefits of walking is once you stop walking, those benefits still continue even when you have stopped. So you're still burning calories and you're still burning sugars, and your muscles are still working after you've even finished. Some of the symptoms that you would look for or signs would be frequent thirst, frequent urination, you could have weight loss, weight gain, numbness and tingling in your fingertips or your toes, cuts or bruises that don't quite heal properly anymore, blurred vision is another one, yeast infections for women, trouble getting erections for males, and fatigue. Very, very, just have no energy. You can't get yourself up, you can't walk up the stairs. Those are some of the signs and symptoms that you would be looking for. I myself am type 2 diabetes. I got diagnosed when I was, I think, about 13 or 14. And then they said I was type 1, but all those symptoms that I listed those are exactly what I experienced, and very strong. And I remember being so thirsty that nothing could quench my thirst. And what I craved for was milk with sugar. And I was boarding out here in Kenora at the time, going to high school at Beaver Bay. So I boarded out with a boarding parent, and I didn't know what I was experiencing at the time. I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm just really thirsty. I had no idea, right? So my mom didn't know I was experiencing these symptoms, but that's what I experienced. I remember it was a weekend and I was so unwell, I didn't want to go home. And they had a function here in Kenora, and I remember telling the other girls who I boarded out with, like, hey, if you see my mom, tell her I'm not feeling well, right? And sure enough, my mom came, and I just remember being really thirsty, really tired, and my room was in the basement, and I couldn't even climb up those stairs without being really super winded, and I had to sit down and rest, right? And that's when I knew, oh, there's something happening. So my mother took me to Emerge, and I barely made it there. I remember passing out, and I woke up in ICU with my doctor. She must have came, I don't know how many days have went by, maybe one, like a full day, but I woke up to my doctor waking me up. When I first got diagnosed, I was actually, I had an excited outlook on it. I remember they had this little cart of movies, diabetes movies, and a TV, and I watched all those movies, and the way they talked about nutrition and the way they talked about eating, I was excited because I was overweight at that time, right? So I had a better outlook on it because I knew that this would force me in that positive direction. And it did. I lost weight. They had originally diagnosed me as type 1. I'm not. I got off the insulin, I think, a month after I got out of the hospital. I think I must have lost about maybe 20 or 30 pounds. And after that, I didn't need the insulin. And I went on just oral medications. And I've been like that on oral medications just about maybe until about 2 years ago. And I had to add a little bit something more. So just on the one medication until I was up to age 35. But now that I'm getting older, I am 37, and I experience nothing anymore when I have high blood sugar. I feel nothing. I don't get thirsty. I don't get tired. So I see when people say that they don't have any of those kind of symptoms. So I've been on both sides. I felt them very, very strongly in the beginning, and at the end, I didn't really feel anything anymore. So we're always saying this is a great example that you should continue and have those regular check-ins with your doctor, especially if you are seeing some of those signs and symptoms, or even if you feel like you just generally aren't well. That for sure warrants a check-in with your healthcare provider. That's the really only way you're going to truly know. Unless you see us in your community and we're doing blood glucose screening, then come see us for sure. We always do that. Yeah. We do come across definitely those with elevated sugar levels, and we do recommend them to see their healthcare provider based on their sugar results. So we do encourage them to see, and luckily for our organizations and luckily for the communities that we do travel to these communities, and they could get that check-in as soon as possible most of the times. Yeah. I always tell people that had it not been for diabetes, I would be morbidly obese. Everybody who knows me knows I love to eat. I really, truly do. I talk about food often. We're always cooking in communities, right? If it weren't for diabetes keeping me in check, I could tell you 100% that I would be probably morbidly obese. Because we're always aware of our mind, body, spirit, and heart, right? So Native perspective is that if one of those aren't in good health, then overall we're not in good health. So I always try to make sure that I live a balanced lifestyle. And I've had my ups and downs for sure, especially with diabetes. There's times where my sugars would go high. And again, I won't know, but at my regular check-ins, they're like, hey, your sugars have been high for X amount of time, right? So, and then I would feel like a little unwell, but that's always that kind of that encouragement to get back on that track and to know that, hey, you know what, some things need some tweaking. I'm not feeling well. And then the thing with diabetes is there's always room for change, right? If you're not feeling well, let's change that because we can make you feel better, even with diabetes, I feel. Yeah. We actually go into communities and we have diabetes series. So we have like a monthly, right now we're doing it in Show Like 40. So every month we come out there and do a diabetes related educational information session. So sometimes we do like diabetes 101 or diabetes and like low carb cooking. So what are some recipes we could make that won't elevate your sugar levels as much of other recipes? Also, the drinks is really important, right? A lot of people don't look at drinks and food in the same line, but they really are. And just talking with them, supporting them. I have a lot of people who know not only that I am a health promoter, but also living with diabetes. So I do get that one-on-one conversation all the time. Unfortunately, denial is probably our number one challenge in the First Nations populations in diabetes. I see it time and time again. I think it's just they don't want to deal with it because that's how I get at some points. I'm not sure exactly what the rationale it is, but it's not only with diabetes, but it's with all health related things I find. It'd be blood pressure, it'd be diabetes, it'd be whatever, even kind of like if somebody has a throat infection, they wait for the very last minute, and I'm just talking about from my little personal experiences, but I find that denial is definitely uh, a challenge that we deal with, and I'm not sure why. Yeah, sometimes it could just be a small change is all we need. Yeah. Just to be more aware of the things that we're putting in our bodies. The processed foods, right? We should be eating a little bit more whole foods. Being aware of what we're putting in our bodies in terms of drinks, caffeine. Just being aware of what's around us and what we're putting into our bodies, because it's easy to not wonder or not know what's in a particular food, right? Tastes good, but is it necessarily good for our body? Yeah, those are the kind of things. And that denial piece is, I always say, just nip it right away and go get it done with, and go check in with your healthcare provider, because it might not be anything. It might be some simple fix, right? It might be not a simple fix, but you know what? We could work at it and we could get healthy again. In our populations, we do definitely have a high risk of diabetes, and unfortunately, that's just the cards we got dealt with. But we can definitely do a lot of things to reduce the risk, and even if we're already living with diabetes, live healthy lifestyles and long, healthy lifestyles. That's like going on 20 plus years I've been living with diabetes, and I'm not saying that it was been perfect my whole life, but I've had my own share of like bumpy roads, but I've always overcome them. I've always seemed to work on them well, and I've always seemed to come back to that healthy body and lifestyle. So it's always just, and that's with anybody, right? Even people not living with diabetes, it's just life's journey that we have those kind of moments, and just bringing back and trying to live the best life as possible is what all we could do. If you have been diagnosed, I would check in with your community for sure, especially the health centers in your community. You always have a great collection of workers there that have different programmings, and they would also know of the programmings coming into the community through outside organizations. I would say develop that relationship with your healthcare provider and your diabetes educator as well to get more information. And just find some information that you gravitate towards that will help you in your journey. Like for me, I love to eat. So mine is that I like to look at all these different recipes and try to figure out ways that I could cut the carbs or cut the sugars so I can eat, right? So things like that. Also, I know it's really a lot of the people now are doing like a lot of weight loss, right? But I always say if you eat well, if you exercise, and you drink good things, then you know what, that weight will come off anyway. So as long as we're eating well, we're aware of what we're putting in our bodies, and we're exercising, even walking, that's all I do is just walk because I have like a bad back, right? So that's all that I pretty much do. And that weight will come off anyway. And then to keep well with your family, keep well with your friends, keep well with your spirituality, and say your prayers, and we should be just fine.